Hi, I'm Devin Sheets with Alpha Sound. In the fourth part of this video series, I got the unique privilege to speak with Joseph, who's the head of R&D at NEXO. We have to remember that all of these amazing technologies we've been talking about, they don't grow on trees. Real people have to get up in the morning every day and go into work, and their job is to think up all of this cool stuff. Without them, we don't have any of it. So I wanted to ask him about his experience working at NEXO and how it is that we end up with really innovative products like this. So Joseph, thanks for talking with me. This is great. You're the director of R&D at NEXO. It's a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, Devin.
It's the case that every once in a while a company will come out with something interesting, and maybe they come out with that one thing that they're known for a long time in the industry. It's very rare to have companies come out very consistently with absolutely groundbreaking, shattering technologies. It's just, that doesn't happen. And NEXO has done that for decades. How does that work? What does it look like in the R&D department?
I think it's really in our DNA. The founder of NEXO was also director of R&D, and all the product he made from the end of the 70s till the mid of in 2010 were always oriented to innovation and to new process and new sound sources and so on and so on. And now we have his heritage and try to go on. Also, we try to have some discussion with marketing, sales, and so on to make everybody happy. But it's true that the innovation is really in the heart of NEXO.
You know, when you talk about DNA, NEXO has a DNA. How would you sum that up? Like what constitutes the basic components of this DNA?
We have a chance to have some very long time engineers at R&D, that kind of memory of what we have done, and they are very keen of keeping on these memories alive for the young generation.
So is there usually one person who's responsible for each innovation? Like it's someone's idea and they come to the rest of the team and say, hey, I woke up at 3 a.m. and thought of this thing that we should try. Is that how it works? Or what's the process typically like for these huge breakthroughs?
Some of them found some ideas in the middle of the night. On my side is rather under the shower, but some other ideas are very well constructed.
Is there this kind of pressure to sort of every day live up to the brand, and the legacy? Like we have to come out with something just groundbreaking and shattering this week, or we failed. Is there this pressure, or what's the feel around the place like?
No. There's not this kind of pressure. I think if you look at our catalog, we have some very innovative product, but we have also some very, I would say, cost-optimized product that we use some technology we developed maybe 10 or 20 years ago that now are available at a very competitive price. So we can balance between effective products and innovation. And yes, reuse this innovation from the past to go down in most cost-effective products.
So there's this new product out, the ID84, which is a column speaker. NEXO hasn't had a column speaker before, and so now they do, and this is incredible. So what was the thinking behind this product? What prompted, hey, we need a column speaker? And of course, I'm assuming in the R&D department, there must have been some talk. Well, if we're going to come out with a column speaker, it's not just going to be another column speaker. It's going to be the best column speaker that anyone's ever heard. And of course, I've heard it now, and it is, and I've installed it in many places. And it's incredible for so many reasons, but I kind of want to just hear the quick history of how this came about.
So first, thank you very much for the compliment about the ID84. I would say it's a little bit the same story that we had with the line arrays in the past. So we were not the first to come up with a product, but we took time to look what the competitor is doing and what can we add from our DNA to have our very specific own NEXO product. So that was more or less the process. Of course, the specification to a column speaker is quite easy to understand. And then it has been a very, very long research process before coming up to a product. That's why it came up only last year's. But in the end, we think it's really like an extra product with all the kind of small innovation that makes life easier, I think, and good sounding.
How many iterations did you go through before you landed on the current design in production?
I have to look at the log, the log file of the project, but yes, maybe I would say 20, because we try many things, from very standard arrangement to very weird, something we can produce, something you cannot produce. So it has been a very long road.
In terms of the design, it's very unique in that it has a separate HF section that just has a bunch of dome tweeters. This is something that normally people think, column speaker, either the high frequency would be distributed within the column of drivers itself, or maybe only a few are activated for high frequency purposes. There's some shading there, or maybe you have a horn in the center or something. What led to this really unique decision to just use a sort of plane, a curved plane of high frequency dome tweeters?
I think the way it came up was that the geometry of the product gives the constraint. We want to keep into this limit of 1 meter high, so we can't put the HF above the 4 inches. So it should be in front, but then in front, how to come up with something that has a coverage, the target coverage. So in the end, we do not have enough room to put a waveguide. We tried the solution with the HF driver, and we were surprised by the thermal capacity of this driver. So it means that they can handle a very large amount of power. So in the end, it was competitive with the solution using a compression driver and a horn. Of course, we have to put several dome tweeter in the end. And then the benefit is that the sound is very different from a compression driver. You have this kind of hi-fi sound, which we thought could be interesting for the product.
A lot of people look at it and actually don't expect it to get all that loud because of the fact that it has these tweeters, like a home stereo system or something, or a studio monitor. So then, of course, when we do demos and we turn it on and we open it up, and people are absolutely amazed. I mean, as always with the NEXO product, it's sort of very, very small for how loud it gets. But the smoothness of the sonic character all the way through that mid and high frequency, I mean, it's just unparalleled. I've never heard another PA speaker sound like that.
Yes, you're right. The sound is coming from two different characteristics. First, there is this dome tweeter, but we should also not forget that all that is driven by the NXM Mark II, and the DSP processing in the NXM Mark II is quite amazing. So we are able to do some very complex equalization and also some very complex dynamic equalization that leads to this sound which stay consistent even at high volume, keeping some dynamics and so on. So it's a mix of the acoustic product and the signal processing, which is before.
I think that you were telling me in a previous email exchange that in the HF section, it has a bit of natural curvature to it, but actually on the narrow setting, the middle drivers are delayed a slight bit, so it kind of flattens it out. Whereas on the broad setting, the outer drivers are delayed, and it sort of even gives it more curvature.
In the end, the passive filter is divided in 4 different groups for pair of 2 HF driver, and 4 different groups for the pair of 4-inch drivers. So all that put together is quite a big number of capacitor and coils. And then once again, you have to switch between these two networks for having the more curvature or less curvature to have the narrow or wide coverage.
Okay, and then you have to explain the arrangement, the vertical arrangement of the high-frequency drivers starting out more or less on top of each other and kind of diverging in this very cool, I mean, from a marketing standpoint, quite genius probably, very iconic split between the drivers. What is going on there? Is that for some horizontal control, or are you just trying to cram it all into one space? What is that?
It was to increase the long throw. More or less, it's like increasing the level on the upper driver. So that's the idea, and it has been quite, I would say, handwork. It's not something that came out from a computer. We just thought that yes, maybe how can we increase the power for the long throw, and you're right, it has also some effect on the horizontal directivity, and we came up with this arrangement. also because of distance between the speakers and so on. So in the end, all works fine. And it's true that when you have a product that technically works well, usually the shape, the aesthetic shape is something nice. You don't need to add some extra marketing on it. It gives immediately a good, nice looking product.
So with the ID84, we have this, the narrowing of the pattern in the high frequency section with a bit more throw toward the rear of the venue with a slightly wider and more shaded coverage in the front. This all sort of comes together in this product that seems to be very well suited for environments where maybe there's a reverberant space, like a hall or a church. And typically the throw is rather long. If you put a regular point source speaker up there, it's just not going to sound as clear halfway back, and especially at the rear of the venue. This product sort of solves that without having to jump up into the line array category.
Yes, so of course, the column speakers are known to have a very good directivity control, especially in the vertical coverage. But it's true that when you try to reduce the size of the line array, for example, below the GOM6, what about GOM4? I don't know. You have this problem that because of the mechanical part of the line array, the cost of the mechanical becomes too much regarding the costs of the acoustic part. So we have to find a solution that gives the benefit of the line arrays without having this complex mechanical adjustment between the boxes. So in the end, the ID84 is this kind of mini line array integrated, fixed, more or less, because you can still change the directivity with the switch at the back, and that fill the gap between the point sources and the small line array like GOM6, yes.
So Joseph, thanks so much for talking with me again. This is a real pleasure. And I'm looking forward to, of course, all the amazing things that NEXO will create in the future, and all of us are. So thank you.